Hello and welcome to The Body's Compass. I'm your host, Matt. Today, celebrating 100 episodes. 100th episode. Can you believe it? I was having a little reflection before, just seeing how this whole thing has evolved from the start where Nuala approached me in my office to now, just overlooking some trees, and wanted to share with everyone my intention for this episode is to bring you a little closer to your dream. Now, it's a question I ask my students, it's a question I ask my patients, it's a question I ask my clients, family, friends, and it's surprisingly shocking that not that many people know what their dream is. And I'm not talking necessarily your sleeping dream. However, if you are searching for your waking dream, then there could be clues in your sleeping dream. But that's an episode for another day. So I hope with a little bit of dialogue here, I can bring some potential clarity to that question, because I don't think many people are living a life they had dreamed of. And it saddens me to say that. And I think if a lot of people just had a little bit more encouragement or a little bit more clarity on their dream, they would hopefully give themselves permission to at least chase that. So let me ask you something, and don't answer out loud just yet. What's your dream? Not looking for the polite answer, not the I haven't thought about it in years answer, the real one. Today I want to dive into some ideas that hopefully won't just motivate you, but actually calls you out on the reasons you might be feeling a bit stuck. And then hopefully we can come up with a plan on how to move on that. So this isn't necessarily about quitting whatever's going on in life right now, or chasing some perfect version of success. It's really just about clarity, courage, and just taking the next step. So let's get into it. Now, there is a hard truth when looking at your dream, because most people don't fail at the dream. They never give themselves permission to really have one. And that can be because of societal, let's call it conditioning, family conditioning, pressure from friends, or a certain expectation from someone who you put up on a pedestal on some level. Sometimes we get busy, sometimes we get practical, sometimes we get scared. And bit by bit, dreaming feels irresponsible or unrealistic or even selfish. So before we talk about how to chase a dream, we need to really stop and ask the question properly. Not what should I do, but what do I actually want? So I would challenge anyone just to sit down and really sit with that question, because clarity doesn't come from rushing. It comes from being brutally honest with yourself. And if you constantly tell yourself, well, I need to heal this to have my dream, well, the first step in healing is sitting down with yourself and being brutally honest with yourself. So there is a concept I borrowed from Simon Squibb, And he came up with the concept of the staircase of stuck. Now, it's quite a powerful idea, and I've used it with several students and patients. But these are mental steps that usually keep us frozen. So these steps are: I don't have time, I don't have money, I'm too old, I don't even know what my dream is, what are other people going to think? But as we're stuck in that mindset, one of the key insights is you don't have to jump the entire staircase. You normally climb it one excuse at a time. So it's really helpful to identify what's really stopping you. So instead of fighting everything at once, just ask yourself, what excuse am I standing on right now? What's the smallest way I can challenge it? Because progress doesn't come from bravery, it just comes from movement. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I don't even know what my dream is, that's absolutely fine, because that means you're being honest with yourself. So I would suggest asking yourself some questions like, what do I love doing, even when no one's watching? What problem do I care deeply about? What pain have I experienced that I'd like to help others avoid? Now, I'm going to repeat those 3 questions again, because once we have the answer to those questions, that's a real key ballpark, at least, to be able to act from, or at least start planning from. So ask yourself, what do I love doing, even when no one's watching? What problem do I care deeply about? What pain have I experienced that I'd like other help? What pain have I experienced that I'd like to help others avoid? To give you an example, I can answer those on my behalf. What do I love doing even when no one's watching? I love learning. It can be about the most useful thing I can use day to day. It can also be absolute dribble, but I love learning. I love learning about cultures. I love learning languages. I love learning anatomy and physiology and everything about the psyche and the body. And I love putting that acquired knowledge into use. Rudolf Steiner said, once new knowledge is acquired, it must be practiced 3 times before it is learnt. What problem do I care deeply about? One of the problems, I would call it, that I care deeply about is how most people get told one thing and then take it as gospel. Because to me, that's a very, very dangerous idea. So dangerous, in fact, I would go so far as to say that's probably the cause of more than half the diseases out there today. What pain have I experienced that I'd like to help others avoid? Well, the first thing that came to my mind when I read that question was everything my dad went through. I saw him go through what we call the health system. And don't get me wrong, I'd rather it there than not there. But putting all his eggs into that basket to later come out the other side psychologically battered and bruised, even though he's fine today, he still went through that whole ordeal, and that was really the springboard which launched me into doing everything that I do today, which is kind of funny because we argue about it often, although technically it is his fault. So look for the intersection. So your dream will normally live in the things that you enjoy doing, all the things that you're good at, and what helps others overlap. So it's rarely random. It's often been following you quietly for years. Now, there is an uncomfortable part for some when we're trying to chase our dream or even identify our dream, and it is necessary. Don't wait for confidence to act. You act, and the confidence will follow. So we can take an imperfect action step. Doesn't necessarily mean a full plan, not just a 5-year roadmap. You can just take one step. Make a call, start the draft, share the idea, test the thing. Momentum will beat motivation every time. Hopefully they play off each other. And you don't need to do this alone. So another big myth is that you don't have to do it by yourself. You just don't. By making the call or sharing the idea, it's likely someone will know someone who knows someone that has more information or can even potentially be your first customer. So it's really about building support around you. So as you're sharing the idea, talk about the dream. Ask for help. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Learn from people already doing what you want to do. Most people actually love helping, and they can't help if they don't know what you want. Most people love helping. It's a natural spiritual progression that we all go through. We all hit a level of development where we hit a certain competency in what we're doing. And there is a part of us that just wants to naturally share that with others. Those people usually take on some kind of mentoring role. Another part to consider is that when we're chasing something like a dream, we have to be grown up enough and responsible enough to be okay with the idea that failure is a part of the deal. And you can either call it failure or you can call it a lesson. So you've got to be real. You will mess up. God knows I've messed up a million times. But failure isn't the opposite of success. Just keep that in mind. It's just part of the tuition fee. Because all of these tuition fees allow you to learn, allow you to adjust, and also allow you to keep going. So every setback kind of gives you more and more data. You can ask yourself, well, what worked? What didn't? What can I try differently? When you really think about it, the only real failure is stopping. Always remember that your dream is likely going to evolve. It isn't fixed. It grows as you grow. And as you make little steps, you can celebrate progress. You can adjust things when needed. And keep asking yourself the question, what's my dream now? It will evolve as you do. Most of us often get put off our dream because we've shared our dream and someone, parent, family, friend, someone somewhere said simply don't do it. It's too risky, or you shouldn't do that. You can't do that. Whatever that statement is. I certainly got told that a lot. When I was growing up, I had two parents working, one as an accountant and one as a travel agent. So my idea as a child of adulthood was coming home at the end of the day exhausted. And I thought that's just what you had to do as an adult. So that was my perception of what adults do. And I wasn't good at school. But I had to go, as we all did. And not being great at school really lowered my confidence. because I kept learning about things I really, really didn't care about. So I found it really hard to put my energy into, I guess, committing to those lessons, because I didn't see the point at the time. Now, if I had different parents, they may have taken me to some kind of doctor or specialist and would have had attention deficit disorder or whatever label they'll come up with then. But then I made a deal with my parents that I could leave school if I got an apprenticeship, in which I did. But before that happened, my perception was I had to study really hard to get the good grades at school to then go to college or TAFE or university, spend 4 years there, more learning about stuff that never really interested me, and then graduating with a debt, going into a job that's well enough to pay my way in the world. Because back then you couldn't get into university without a good mark in your HSC, which I never did anyway. So that was my then perception. But then I went into greenkeeping, and 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning starts kind of threw me a bit. So I had to get 2 trains and a bus from Cronulla to West Epping 6 days a week until I got my license, and I cut that trip down from about 2 hours to about an hour and 10. It was certainly character building, but I was just happy to be out of school at the time. But then even doing that, I was on cruise control, and then that cruise control led into a bit of we could definitely call it a hero's journey, because my motivation to go to work became less and less and less and less. And it's hard enough to get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, let alone doing it for a job that you're really, really uninspired to do. And that's when the weight of the world gets very heavy. And some of you listening now might be in that same boat and thinking, well, I've got mouths to feed. I've got a husband, wife that I need to support. And that's fine. For me, it became viscerally heavy. And it forced me to get creative in a way that I could keep showing up to work, but I had another project in mind. That's when I started studying nutrition and personal training. It gave my mind something to focus on, and it helped me get through those times. And on those real bad days and those real heavy days, I was able to get to a point where I could rely on the vision of working within the nutrition or the personal training realms. And that levity was enough to overcome the gravity of my then situation. So I used that as motivation. But I first had to go through, well, what do I love doing? I love training. I don't want to say I love nutrition, because nutrition now is surprisingly different to back then. But I love learning about what foods contain what, and what foods are great for, be it weight loss, weight gain, muscle, this disease, that disease, this is good for that organ, this is good for that organ, good for skin, eyes, etc. And I've always been into fitness, so I decided to turn my hobby into a career. And then over, I guess, 10 to 15 years, it slowly morphed into, I guess, more either rehab and high performance training. And then I never saw myself ever as a manual therapist, and here we are. So the dream continually evolves, and it'll be interesting to know what my dream will be in 10 years time. So that all came from someone telling me don't, or you can't, or you shouldn't, because of ... But then when someone throws that back at you, you can always check with yourself. Are they qualified to say that? Now, today I work for myself. And someone like my dad, who has worked for a company all his entire working life, he just gave me a list of things that could go wrong or that I'll be up against. But then in the moment, I'm like, well, you've never worked for yourself, so are you qualified to really say that to me? And today we laugh about it and blame him for all the childhood trauma I received. But outside that, he admitted he was just projecting his own unknowns onto me, and we always associate the unknown with fear, because a lot of us are conditioned to think that way, and I was exactly the same. But I had to get to a point where I would dare say, near depression, to actually act and do something about it. So when someone says don't, or you can't, or you shouldn't, really question their, let's call it, qualification to be saying things like that. And talk to someone who has had experience in the thing that you want to do, or is doing the thing that you want to do, because they're more qualified to tell you. So in reality, let me leave these little lines for you. You don't need more time. You don't need more permission. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need the courage to ask yourself the question and the willingness to take the next step. What's your dream? I know a lot of people, when they think of their dream, they try to use things like the law of intention or the law of I'm forgetting them. Law of attraction, law of intention, all those creation laws that govern the universe. I know law of intention is what you create begins with what you choose. So creation starts the moment you decide what you want, why you want it, and what you're no longer available for. So in that model, vague intentions creates vague results. But in practice, clear goals, clear boundaries, and clear direction activate the action and the focus. Then you've got things like law of attention or law of focus. What you focus on grows. Your attention will shape your perception. Your attention directs energy and effort. Your attention reinforces neural pathways. So the key idea with that is where attention goes, energy flows. In practice, it's about consistent focus, changing behavior, decision making, and opportunity recognition. You've got things like law of alignment, which is creation accelerates when thoughts, emotions, belief, and actions agree. And the misalignment of the thought, the emotion, the belief, and the action, that creates friction. It's like wanting something while doubting it and acting in ways that contradict your own goals, which unfortunately is a lot of people. So the key idea is the internal coherence producing the external momentum with that. So it's about belief and emotional regulation and aligned action. So you can see how a lot of these laws can govern our creation. But as much as validity are in these laws, you've got to find the one that resonates with you, because all of these laws in reality work together. So think of creation, as in creating your dream as an example, as intention sets direction. Attention fuels momentum. Alignment removes friction. Action creates results. And allowing lets the outcomes land. And when you miss a stage of that, that's when the progress slows down. Now, it's interesting when we talk about laws of creation, because they're all derivations of what Ra would refer to as the law of one. Now, when we're talking about creating our own dream, the two that I find the most powerful, and they kind of, sort of, not really, but sort of do in a way, contradict each other, which is the paradox that is creation itself. The law of attraction essentially teaches us to believe we already have it. And then that feeling of already having it, that creates a magnet towards it, or it towards you. Where the law of one would approach the, getting what you want situation very differently from the manifesting style teachings, because it's less about attracting the outcome and more about how the desire itself, the intention itself, and consciousness shape the experiences and evolution. So in the premise of the law of one, all is one. There is one unified consciousness experiencing itself through many forms. So you are not separate from what you seek. Desire is a catalyst for growth. It's not really a vending machine request. And what you quote unquote get depends on your polarization, i.e. they call it service to self, service to others. So service to others is wanting to help people. Service to self is creating that hierarchy, that control over others. But in the law of one, the desire exists to create the experience and then generate the lessons and accelerate your own spiritual evolution. You don't get things because you want them. The experience, what best serves you, and your learning and polarity. So the catalyst is offered, and then the response is chosen. You receive what you are ready to integrate. And then getting what you want really depends on your level of awareness, your ability to use the outcome without any distortion. Whether it supports your chosen path, something could strengthen ego distortions, increase separation between you and what you want or you and others, and just delays your own growth. So it may not manifest, even if it strongly desires. So the key differences from law of attraction and law of one: in the law of attraction, desire attracts the outcome, where in law of one, desire initiates the learning. Law of attraction, emotion is the signal. In law of one, consciousness is the filter. Law of attraction, focus on the manifestation, where law of one is focus on evolution. Law of attraction, success is getting what you want. In law of one, success is knowing yourself, because often you get something more precise than you've asked for. Sometimes you get the lesson behind the desire, but you always receive what best supports your evolution at any given time. So you don't necessarily get what you want, you get what helps you grow into yourself, using the desire as catalyst for growth rather than a tool for control. How this relates back to your dream is really the energetic laws, if you will, that are governing all the things that you don't see going on behind the curtain. And the prime example of if I can't chase my dream because ... you can already see what the desire is. So that's going to initiate the learning. Now, you might desire to change jobs, for example, but then keep telling yourself, I can't because I don't have any money. So then the emotion generated by that creates the signal. Then your consciousness is the filter for that. But then if you keep focusing on the thing that you don't want, that's the manifestation rather than the evolution. So we might perceive as getting the job or being in the position or living a life in a certain way is, we call that success, and that's getting what we want. But then how much of you learnt about you in the process? Because you can have the title, you can have the title, have the job, have the car, have everything. And if one of those things changes, who are you? And that's why the law of one saying success is knowing yourself. So really the entire journey is you learning about you. Now, isn't it funny when you ask a young child about what their dream is, and it's often something, I want to be a space cowboy, astronaut, and chef, all in one sentence. Now the child, the adult mind automatically goes, oh, well, you can't do that. But you can see how that, to a child who is an absolute sponge and completely open, can take that as, oh, I can't do that, so I shouldn't do that. And if I want to chase that, then I shouldn't because I was told not to. But it's all unconscious. It's all happening in the background. Fast forward several decades, working in a job you're not really enjoying to make all the money you think you need to buy things you don't want, to impress people you don't like. And when we don't take action in life, it's funny how life will create action for you. We can think the thoughts, feel the emotions, and have a desire. But if we don't act on it, or make a call, or share an idea, or whatever that looks like for you, when we don't do that, the unconscious will manifest itself into taking action and will force the action, and it will often be perceived as some kind of an attack from the universe, and you'll think the universe is punishing you or whatever the story is. But in reality, it's really just the universe responding to your own desire. People wanting to move away, but not really doing anything about it because they feel like they're stuck. And when they share that they're stuck and people come up with potential solutions or ideas or get creative, they just shut them down every time. So they inevitably just stay where they are. And inevitably, if that's a word, the universe is going to throw them a curveball and say, well, if you wanted to move, here's your opportunity to move. But then they're going to see that as the universe is doing me, or whatever that story might look like. And so they call it bad luck, or they call it fate, etc., etc. But when we have that dream, the thing that we love doing, no matter how outrageous it might seem to most people, what we love doing. What problem do we want to potentially solve? What pain has been experienced enough that I would dedicate my time and energy to help others avoid? The answer to those questions are really the starting points for you just to sit with and just be honest with yourself. You've got to think, what would I want to do even if money wasn't a thing? What's the activity that I love to do? And then once you've got the answer to that, you can go back to that staircase, which is, oh, well, I don't have time, I don't have money, I'm too old, don't even know what my dream is, what are other people going to think? And just be honest with yourself. Say, I'm right here, right now. And if you're not sure how to create more time, then swap the word time for priority. If you are on the don't have enough money step, then exchange the word money for energy. If you think you're too old, well, how old do you need to be? Age is just a number, is it not? I don't even know what my dream is. Well, what do I like doing anyway? And there's your first few little clues. Then what will other people think? Well, other people will likely be jealous. Other people probably won't want you to do it because you're chasing your dream and they're not chasing theirs. And as part of Western collective thinking, for some reason, the people in the group don't like one person evolving from the group unless they take the whole group with them. And as soon as that person evolves from the group and don't take the others with them, they become an outcast. And that can become quite scary for people. But then you have to ask yourself, what would you rather? There becomes a time where you approach the fork in the road saying, well, do I stay with this that feels comfortable but boring, or comfortable and heavy? It feels familiar, but a little bit of my soul is dying each time. Or do I say, I'm chasing my dream, and I can love that from a distance? That's usually the fork in the road for most people, and that's just taking responsibility. And not everyone is going to want you to succeed or want you to leave the group or chase your dream because they feel like they're left behind. And it was especially evident during let's say a little social experiment that happened several years ago. So when we identify where we are on that staircase, then we can start looking for our own little clues. What do I enjoy doing? What am I good at? What do I enjoy helping others do? You got more little clues for you to follow. As we have more little clues, we can start becoming our own detective. If you want to go a little bit deeper into that, you can look at what we value. Do we value health? Do we value money? Do we value possessions? Do we value connection? Do we value evolving? Do we value helping others? Do we value being helped ourselves? So as you can see, there's lots of little questions you can ask yourself to really follow your own breadcrumb trail of what you feel you're here to do. And I'm not necessarily talking about your overarching legacy. It could be just simply finding a new job. But then ask yourself, what's holding me back? What story am I telling myself that is holding me back? And the ego part of you will kick and scream with why you can't change your current situation. There's a safety in it. It might be financial, it might be freedom, anything in between. But I would encourage anyone just to challenge that story. Give it time and challenge it again. Once you're in a space of clarity, in that space, challenge it again. And then ask yourself, is that really true? And then if you come up with the word yes, ask yourself again, do I know for sure that that's really true? So I hope that helped some of you at least contemplate and hopefully spark a little bit of interest or spark a little bit of creativity within you, just to start challenging yourself in a way that allows you to play with the idea, at least just like a child would get some pencils or a crayon or some charcoal or whatever it might be and just start scribbling on a bit of paper. Do that with your dream. Just start playing with it. What can come of it? You can think of the potential. And you can breathe out your left nostril to open up the right hemisphere of your brain to get creative on it. And think of ways that it could happen, or what would potentially, hypothetically, need to happen. And think of many different ways as possible that could happen. And you might just be surprised what actually comes to you. But my suggestion is, don't be afraid of what comes to you, because our psyche speaks to us in what some of us call coincidences or metaphors or images. So when you ask those questions to yourself, just pay attention, just listen, and give yourself permission to at least sit with it and have a discussion with someone about it. Share the idea, make a phone call, and maybe even test it out. And you might even find that you'll just be a little bit happier. So thanks for joining me on my 100th episode. I look forward to sharing more with you next time. And if you in a generous mood, feel free to give a 5-star review, a nice little note, share it with your friends. If you like the episode, share it with as many people as you like. If you don't, then let's just keep it our little secret. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you all very soon.
You've been listening to a solo episode of the Body's Compass podcast with Matt Sorensen as he celebrates episode 100. If you liked this week's episode, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and a warm review. Please share this episode with someone you think it might help. If you want to find out more, give us a follow on Instagram at The Body's Compass. Subscribe to Matt's YouTube at Matt Sorensen Live, or swing by heelhub.net. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time.